book both about faith in general, the larger religious picture around the world, and also about Christianity in particular, since that's my own tradition and my own specialty. But I try to deal with the larger picture and the more particular one. Well, religion without dogma is more like a way of life, more like a way of living, a spiritual discipline, a community that one belongs to. There are, of course, beliefs that are associated with any religion, but I think of beliefs as more secondary, and faith as something far more basic. Faith as an orientation to God, fidelity to God. Fides is the Latin root for faith, and beliefs are a part of it. Beliefs are not as basic as the faith. And I think what we have seen in the last 50 years is a movement toward understanding the existential, the experiential, the spiritual dimension of religion, especially in Christianity, and less of an emphasis on beliefs. Now, the reason I say that is I think historically beliefs have changed over the years, just as they change in one's own lifetime. I know that as a Christian, my beliefs are not exactly the same as they were when I was 10 years old, or 25 years old, or 50 years old even. The core of my faith is still there and continues. But the beliefs change to some extent. As I grow older, as I mature, as I read, as I encounter other people, I encounter other faiths, other religions. But the basic fundamental orientation toward God is what I consider to be faith, and that continues, and I think that's growing and not disappearing. Let me just add that there was a time when I first started teaching 40, 50 years ago that people were predicting the disappearance of religion because of the growth of modernity. Widespread predictions of that nature. That did not happen, as we all know. Instead, what happened in the last 50 years is, for a number of complex reasons, religions have had a flowering in various places in the world. And I try to explain that, too, to some extent in this book. Without dogma doesn't mean without beliefs, as I just said. It means that the doctrines and beliefs are secondary to the basic faith orientation and to the community. It doesn't mean individualism. It means belonging to a community which shares a history, which shares a hope, especially a vision of the future, which you can have confidence in, because God is after all, the author, creator of the past and the future. So you can have confidence in the future. But I think Christianity, I won't talk about other faiths in this regard or other religions, Christianity has been burdened by too many beliefs. And here I am sitting in a city which was founded by Constantine. But in my view, historically, which I talk about in this book, Constantine did a lot of damage to Christianity in the 4th century, the same century that he founded Constantinople. He did that by insisting that all Christians everywhere in the world should have exactly the same doctrinal, creedal structure. Before that, for the first 300 years, there was considerable variety of different ways. Jesus was completely central. God was central. Living a life of faithfulness to the teachings and example of Jesus was central, but other things were quite varied. The philosophical definitions, theological definitions, were quite varied. Then Constantine insisted on a single creed, not for religious purposes, but for imperial purposes. He wanted to have a uniting imperial religious ideology. That was his objective. And so he forced everyone into this particular creed, the Nicene Creed, which you know about, I think. I think that was very damaging. And now we are discovering, all these years later, the variety that was flourishing at the beginning of Christianity, and now we have a period in Christian history now in which these different varieties are flourishing in other places in the world. The basic areas in which Christianity is growing now are no longer Europe and the United States. They're Asia, South America, China, the Asian Rim, the global South. This is the future of Christianity, in my view, lies more there than in the old area of Christendom. And there, in those other places in the world, we see quite a variety of different expressions of Christianity, united by a sense of fidelity to the message of the gospel of Jesus, his life, his message, and the being part of that long history, and part of that hope for the future of what we call the kingdom of God coming to earth, peace and justice and shalom and equality as the future that God has for everybody. I think a shared community, a community that you feel a part of, and where you're accepted, where you're loved, where you're supported by other people within that community, allows for a flourishing of the community, even if there are some differences in opinion. I believe that very strongly. Furthermore, I do not think that a heavy insistence on dogma necessarily prevents individualism. I think individualism can happen there as well. A community can be a community of people who share this basic faith, this basic life orientation, if you will, but who can think about it in different ways and can shade it and nuance it in different ways without imposing it on everybody else. I think it's directed toward Christianity because Christianity, among the various religions, is the one that has put such a heavy emphasis on beliefs, on dogmas. I won't comment about Islam, obviously, but my impression is that in other religious traditions, the weight of that emphasis on beliefs is not as heavy, and also historically, Christianity has often made claims in the name of belief about things that really fall within the realm of science and investigation and so on, especially the more fundamentalist versions of Christianity have done that. So in my mind, the so-called new atheists are not particularly new. They're rehearsing arguments that have been there before. Religion and science, for example. Religion, which to my mind is an old argument. I don't think it's persuasive on either side, and I think mature scientists and mature people of faith, Christians, Muslims, and others, get along very well together. You notice coming in here the picture of Einstein, I think, and Einstein is one of my favorite figures, one of the great scientists of the 20th century, who considered himself a religious man, and said that very publicly. So I don't think the new atheists are very persuasive. The function of atheism, the positive function of atheism, is to be critical of religion when religion becomes pretentious, when religion overreaches its particular field and vocation, its particular function in society, when it becomes too powerful, perhaps. We need criticisms. But we need thoughtful criticisms and well-informed criticisms. And my criticism of the current atheism is not very well informed. It's based on almost a caricature of Christianity or Islam or one of the others. It's not really very well informed at all, and therefore not very